Welcome to This Explainer. Let's just dive right in, because today we are unpacking a concept that is incredibly complex, often totally misunderstood, but drives literally everything we do: ambition. We all have it to some degree, right? But how we actually channel that internal drive has evolved so drastically throughout history. From the bloody battlefields of ancient empires to the modern corporate boardrooms of today, the way we define and pursue our goals has completely shifted. So let's get into it and explore the evolution of ambition.
So here's a pretty heavy question for you. Is ambition the ultimate key to a legendary life, or is it basically just a one-way ticket to suffering? The truth is, ambition is essentially a tool. Think of it like an internal fire. And just like real fire, it can be used to build incredible, lasting legacies that change the world, or it can absolutely rage out of control and destroy us from the inside out. Understanding that duality is the very first step to harnessing our own drive.
Which brings us to part 1, conquerors and consequences.
Let's talk about Alexander the Great. He is pretty much the historical poster child for absolute boundless ambition. From a very young age, he was driven by this intense competitiveness, specifically an insatiable desire to completely outdo the conquests of his own father, King Philip of Macedonia. And honestly, it was incredibly effective in one sense. It propelled him to conquer the known world by the time he was just 32 years old. I mean, most of us are just trying to figure out our 401ks at that age. But what was the actual human cost of that kind of unchecked drive?
Well, the cost of his unchecked power was staggering. Alexander's ambition morphed into something totally toxic. He marched his army for over 20,000 miles simply because he literally could not stop his conquests. This led to a complete breakdown in reality testing. The guy actually began to see himself as a god. He suffered from extreme paranoia and isolation, and crucially, his narcissism prevented him from establishing any sort of succession plan. So when he died, that vast empire he fought so hard to build was immediately torn apart by his generals. His legacy was massive, for sure, but it was highly unstable.
Moving on to our second theme, the dark side of desire. Let's take a look at how ancient traditions actually defined this exact danger, starting with the Christian perspective. It's fascinating how ambition itself is viewed as a simple, completely neutral desire to obtain goods. It's not inherently evil at all, but contrast that with avarice and greed, which are defined as a disordered desire to acquire and hoard wealth. The main takeaway here is that when ambition becomes disordered and totally obsessed with material gain, it essentially turns into a form of modern idolatry and consumerism, trapping the individual.
And we see a remarkably similar duality in Buddhist philosophy too. On one hand, you have Chanda, which is this really positive will to do. It's the healthy driving force that pushes us toward good actions, self-improvement, and meditation. But on the other side is Tanha, the toxic craving. Tanha is the kind of desire that is utterly obsessed with sensory pleasure and feeding the ego. So while Chanda actually moves us forward, Tanha practically guarantees perpetual dissatisfaction. Because, let's face it, the ego can never truly be satisfied.
Building right on that, Buddhist teachings identify greed, or lobha, and ignorance, moha, as the actual poisons that fuel this negative ambition. They trap the mind and make us feel entirely separated from the rest of the world. And if you think about it, it's that exact same isolation that eventually consumed Alexander the Great.
Let's shift gears to part 3, redefining success through spirit.
Enter Mahatma Gandhi. I actually like to think of Gandhi as the direct historical foil to Alexander the Great. While Alexander sought outward conquest and pure domination over others, Gandhi shifted the focus entirely inward toward purification and self-mastery. For Gandhi, achieving political success and liberating India were completely inseparable from his own personal spiritual truth. He proved that the most powerful ambition doesn't require a sword.
To pull this off, Gandhi lived by some incredibly strict vows. You have ahimsa, which is total nonviolence in thought, word, and deed; satya, the relentless pursuit of truth. But look closely at the concepts of aparigraha, meaning non-possession, and actively limiting your personal wants, and asteya, non-stealing. Gandhi had this radical, powerful idea that consuming or possessing more than you actually need is in fact a form of theft from your community. That takes immense self-discipline, and it's the exact opposite of the greed we discussed earlier.
And that brings us right up to today with part 4, the generational ambition shift.
Okay, get this. According to some pretty striking data from Deloitte, we are right in the middle of a massive generational shift. Only 34% of millennials aspire to traditional leadership roles. That means 66% are basically saying no thanks to the corner office.
We are witnessing a widespread rejection of that old Alexander the Great style of corporate climbing. People simply do not want to sacrifice their entire lives just to conquer the corporate ladder anymore.
And building on that, data from Manpower Group and the World Health Organization shows that nearly half, 45% of young workers today are straight up prioritizing work-life balance over bigger salaries and fancy promotions. This isn't just about wanting to be lazy. It's a profound realization that balance is absolutely crucial for mental health. They are quite literally prioritizing their well-being over a title.
If you need even more proof of this shift, consider this really surprising statistic from LinkedIn. 56%. More than half of millennials say they are actually willing to take a pay cut in exchange for more free time or the ability to work remotely. Think about that for a second. Time and freedom are becoming far more valuable currencies than cash for the modern workforce.
So, how do we adapt? Let's get into part 5, cultivating healthy ambition. When we compare these traits using a clinical psychology framework, a really stark contrast emerges. With negative ambition, the focus is success at any price, and failure is absolutely devastating because your entire self-worth is tied strictly to the outcome. But with healthy ambition, the focus is growth through challenges. Failure is just part of the normal process, and your self-worth remains totally stable. Ask yourself right now, does your attitude require you to crush your competitors, or do you desire growth for everyone? This is exactly how you determine if your ambition is a toxic trap or a healthy engine.
So if you want to shift toward that healthy engine in your own life, here are 4 actionable steps. First, make a realistic list of your goals. Second, weigh the actual pros and cons of pursuing them. Third, and this one is absolutely vital, analyze the sacrifices required. What is this going to cost your time, your energy, your relationships? Finally, evaluate and actively protect your self-esteem so it isn't solely dependent on your achievements. These steps empower you to pursue success without sacrificing your sanity or the people you love along the way.
This really brings it all home, with a fantastic quote from psychologist Adam Grant that perfectly encapsulates everything we've explored today. He says, "Success is not measured only by the position you hold, but by the life you live and the relationships you cultivate." This is it. This is the modern, balanced redefinition of human ambition. It's not about the territory you manage to conquer, it's entirely about the quality of the life you build.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on. What is the ultimate goal driving your ambition today? Is it the desire to conquer, or is it the desire to grow and contribute? Take some time today to truly examine what fuels your personal journey. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.